Andre. It's Kathy. Hopefully you can hear me fine. I'm Kathy Maher. I'm the manager of the orchestration platform here at Allstate Insurance Company. Darius Januskis is our senior engineer. He is responsible for the architecture and design of our platform and is going to be participating with me during this presentation. So I'll go ahead. I have a couple of slides here. Just to introduce Allstate, at a glance, we're a Fortune 100 company with over 132 billion in assets and over 70,000 professionals with technology operations located across the globe. And then really just from a infrastructure perspective, we have quite a number of operating system technology platforms, multiple database systems, multiple thousands of software applications. So, really just to paint the picture, we have a pretty large operations, and our platform, the orchestration platform, does provide an enterprise platform across all of infrastructure in order to help various different technology teams basically automate their processes end to end. So really, we were asked to share our journey with regards to our upgrade from 009X to 0010, which we did complete the end of last year. And so really from what we want to cover, we're going to go ahead and really illustrate the architecture design prior to the upgrade. We're going to talk about, the drivers for the upgrade, as well as what the upgrade options were and what we selected and why. We're going to go into a little bit of the impact on the code perspective, as well as the upgrade of the content. Talk through a couple of the new features, as well as then illustrate the architecture and design after the upgrade, because it did change. As well as, we have a summary of tips, best practices and pitfalls. Just a couple of slides regarding service usage, and then some of our vision and Q&A. And then I also wanted to acknowledge Neil is not able to participate today, but we do have Stephen Snow from our platform, who is one of our lead developers, responsible for the standards and best practices with regards to the orchestrated services on the platform. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into the pre-upgrade architecture.
Hello, I'm Darius Januskis. So, as Kathy mentioned, we support enterprise orchestration platform here at Allstate. So before we upgraded to 0010, we had 00907. So we used active-active dual data center architecture. We had 3 lab development and development environments. We had 2 test UAT environments and 2 production environments. Those environments, production and our test environments were completely independent from each other. So basically, they had independent components, databases and NAS file shares, and all servers basically were completely independent. Access to production environment was through wide IP, which provided high availability and load balancing between data centers. And each data center had 3-node production central cluster fronted with the and the same 3 nodes also supported grasses, which also was fronted with that. For clustering, we used Terracotta software and for high availability of central nodes. We used also shared Windows NAS shares for the central repository, as well as the runtime file repository. And in the backend for the database, we used Oracle database for central scheduling and access control and all that information. Workflows were also supported separately by separate file shares, and also we had the NFS file shares for our Unix runtime repository to support like Unix artifacts. Our environment was primarily accessed by our team orchestration administrators, so we didn't provide our centrals were not available for any other teams to be accessed. Just again, our team was able to access those. As far as workflows were launched automatically with the defined invocation channels, such as service catalog and cloud environment. We also had our homegrown self-service web portal for users to be able to launch flows as well. Drivers for the upgrade. So when we started this project, the goal was again to upgrade from 907 to 10. And in order to utilize the the architecture and features, and as well just stay on supported version from HP perspective. And again, when we looked at the 10, it had modernized technology stack and for the main product design pattern, and the new platform was also designed to reduce the cost of ownership, and it supported scaling out rather than app. We also, probably other big reasons why we wanted to move to 10 as soon as possible, because as many of I think our companies had some challenges basically with the Terracotta cluster and file-based repository, were some intermittent connectivity issues and stability issues. So again, the key drivers for the upgrade was to improve the architecture and design, provide better performance, scalability, as well as simplified management. Also, we liked that pretty much anything that you can do in Central, you can do now with the APIs. So open APIs was definitely a big thing, and changes in content management and code promotion. So that supported accessibility and agile delivery. So we really liked the way it changed, moving from 9 to 10. Made it easier to promote content product environments.
So another thing, even before we move forward with the upgrade, of concern was really our code structure and standards and reusability, as we, continue to grow and take on additional work. So within 009, our repository really had a large, number of untracked interdependencies. So basically, as requests came through, as projects were initiated, we create a folder to satisfy, the task at hand. And really what we didn't get out of that was we were quite often reproducing similar type of content to satisfy task after task or project after project. So few of the flows were actually designed specifically for reusability. Again, they were just primarily implemented to complete the task on hand. So, as we got new requirements, quite often we were either passing inputs that weren't used, or that's how we really dealt with new requirements coming in. The other thing we had done back in the pre-0010 is that we actually had originally made a practice of copying all of the out-of-box operations so that, content upgrades wouldn't necessarily impact functionality of, our particular flows. But really what that did, A, we did change that, but B, it also created a single folder that basically every single other flow, had to rely on. So again, code structure and reusability was a concern that we had already started to address.
So when we looked at a couple options for the upgrade. So option one was to completely new build, basically, and build a new boxes and just requirements and install 010. And option two was just do a parallel upgrade using existing servers and environment, just installing 010 in parallel. We picked option two because it didn't require additional hardware, and we also thought that our current hardware had enough capacity to support both versions in parallel. By keeping same servers and same IPs, it allowed us to reduce the amount of time and changes that required for upgrade, which included basically VIPs and the firewalls and monitoring and access and so on. So as prerequisite for the upgrade, we requested a new database schemas for 10 installation and the new NAS shares for source control for SCN. As far as installation itself, we installed 010 on a different drives, on the same boxes, different drives from 09 on the same, and which which enabled us to reuse existing dips with minimal changes. We started upgrade in a lab environment and then executed development, test, UAT, and production, allowing at least a couple of weeks for testing in environments. And in each environment, we had a backup copy of 009, allowing us for us to switch back in case we need it. And again, we did a completely clean install of 10. We did not use the option to upgrade to Invocation.
So as we move on to the code impact, really I can't iterate enough that preparation really was essential in supporting this upgrade. So I had already mentioned that we had concerns with regards to standards and reusability and structure of our code repository. So basically we worked through, what our new development standards and best practices, would be, as well as the new code structure, packaging, and promotion, how that impacted those processes. So I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the code-based paradigm shift between 009 and 10. So really the shift from traditional, file-based repository, whereas in 9, basically you're using Studio and you're picking and choosing the specific flows that you want to promote up to the next environment. This switched over to basically creating content packs and then going to central and loading content packs in order to do the promotion. So Studio was no longer part of the actual code promotion process. So as you recall, Darius did mention the design. In that design, we do have multiple environments. So in addition to the lab environment, we do have a development and a test and a production environment. That we adhere to the SDLC lifecycle practice, whereas we do build and develop in development. And then obviously we use our promotion processes to go to test, to do end-to-end testing, at which point we then mark it available for release to production. So again, a paradigm shift. So really what we needed to take a look at is we needed to determine what level of granularity we wanted to be able to handle code promotion is really what we boiled down to, the level at which we wanted to put the structure in place. So in other words, every content pack, everything within a content pack would have to be released at the same time. So basically, what we did is we carved out services versus integrations. Services is what we really, characterized as standalone applications that are really exposed, outside of the platform, for invocation. So basically, as Darius mentioned, we have multiple invocation channels, be it the catalog or the web portal or so forth. Every service we expose to one of those invocation channels basically has its own content pack. That way, working with service owners, we can go ahead and at any point in time take on activity to update that particular service without impact to other services and their changes. Integrations, by contrast, really can be thought of as code libraries. They're reusable. They're not ordered directly by consumers. Rather, they're actually consumed by our different services. So you can see just a little screenshot there that basically kind of illustrates our naming convention of basically each one of those folders represents a content pack in 10. And, our S.dot for services versus, the invocation versus the I.dot for the integrations. So for every single integration, we have a content pack, and every service we have a content pack. And really, this is just something we share with all of our service owners and our providers or our subservice owners, is really a definition, of how we define our services and subservices. And, again, just to reiterate, you can see services represent that end-to-end basically workflow that's orderable by consumers through a defined invocation channel, which really encompasses our provisioning and other type of provisioning and runbook type activities. Whereas subservices is really, every time orchestration platform has to actually talk to a disparate system, we characterize that as a particular integration, such as up against, Infoblox would be characterized as one integration. And then every one of the flows, or basically every capability, that needs to be automated, we basically create, a flow to satisfy that capability. Those are really modules accessible within the, integration content pack. And this just kind of helps illustrate that structure, whereas you can see, from a consumer perspective, as Darius mentions, our orchestration platform is only accessible by admins, with regards to support. All of our workflows are ordered externally through an Invocation channel. They're launched off to the platform, and you can see this is, happens to be a live example of a service whereby this particular service actually consumes basically modules or subservices across, a number of different integrations in order to actually complete. But again, just the service versus integration and being able to actually, define the level of granularity upon which we want to be able to promote and introduce changes into the environment.
So the content upgrade itself, so what we did basically from our dev environment using Studio, exported the entire 09 library as a new repository. We used upgrade utility comes with 10 to analyze and convert content from 9 to 10. The whole conversion process for us took less than a couple hours, and we found the upgrade utility very easy to use and really helpful for content conversion. What it did, it provided a very detailed report, which was structured by objects with success and objects with some warnings and objects that required actions. It also split content into two types, success and invalid. And there was also suggested solutions for the items that required action. And this type of structure allowed us to import content separately into Studio, successfully converted content as well as a content that required some additional changes or fixes. Another nice feature I found it was a content upgrade report, was a list of content packs that our content has dependency on. This helped us to identify and deploy content packs that were required. As part of the upgrade, we had to create a new repositories to be able to store content packs. And these repositories became the primary method by which we promote content packs. The code itself converted surprisingly well. There were very few surprises or challenges after having completed our code update. The very first time we ran the tool, we had approximately about 70% failure, and then next time it was probably around 50 or 40, and then last time was basically no issues. And thanks to having our predefined code structure in place with library naming conventions, it took us only a couple of days to break the one large project into many smaller services and integration projects. And during that breakout process, there are a few challenges encountered, and those were related primarily to our CDN implementation. So the new features of 0010 as I mentioned before, when we looked initially at 0010 architecture and features, we really liked the redesigned and modernized architecture, where database is a single source for our repository and scheduling and access control. There's no more going back and forth, file repositories and a database. Also, I like the switch to task and worker design pattern, whereas worker is pulling tasks from central, allowing simpler firewall and RAS management. The REST interface provides REST interface in temporal it's another huge feature for us. It's really robust and can pretty much build anything you want. Your own central interface if you need. We have been utilizing it for different things here, Allstate, metrics gathering, also for our own portal and our API gateway. So again, the open APIs makes it really easy to do that. Another good feature was ability to add scale out whole components, central RAS without restarting or iterating components. So that's really makes it easy. It doesn't require any downtime for that. One nice utility that we discovered also in initial phases and we use a lot during the migration and testing was the ability to access performance monitoring dashboard and system configuration. It really helps with testing, support, and troubleshooting, provides details about OO's health and utilization, and a lot of really useful information that helps to tweak environment.
The other thing with regards to Central itself, the UI, the user interface, is just dramatically improved, between 9 and 10. So the UI in 0010 is just much more, it's faster, it's more user friendly, with regards to the navigation and being able to get to where you want to be in terms of viewing workflows that are in progress or active, as well as when it comes time to do troubleshooting. And, speaking of which, it's usually, if we're not promoting, usually we find ourselves going into Central. We're obviously being called upon to do some type of support. So the improved search and filtering capabilities have really been a great help in terms of being able to provide that support. We're able to, filter and search based on, anything within the service name, as well as the run ID, which has really helped. The other thing that we also noticed right away is as developers are actually doing debugging within Studio, those flows do now show up in the Central as well. And then, as I mentioned, Studio is no longer part of the promotion lifecycle. So the actual our lifecycle and our promotion process actually improved quite a bit, with the use of the content packs and being able to just rely on Central to load in the content packs that are associated with a particular release. So, everything can be staged ahead of time. It can be checked in basically at the time of the change to actually implement that release. It's a matter of the person responsible for the promotion to basically go into Central and load the content, the content packs that are marked as being part of that release.
So the post-upgrade architecture, so as already mentioned numerous times, 10 architecture is much improved and simplified, provides better scalability and performance. First of all, there's no need for external clustering software, a clustered operating system or a shared file system in 10 for central repository and high availability. These functions have been moved now to database. Communication direction of RAS in 10 is reversed from what's in 9. In 10, worker initiates the connection to a central node, working like a client. And RAS contains a single worker and remote protocol for communicating with central. Unlike RAS in 09, worker in 10 processes all types of steps and not only remote action. In addition, RASs support grouping mechanism, which enables correlation between a step in the flow and a type of RAS attempt. And that's binding between the flow steps and RASs, and that's why the binding between the flow steps and RASs is dynamic. So the upgrade to 10 provided 3 major changes to our enterprise orchestration platform architecture. First was move from external Terracotta clustering to internal central clustering. Move from slow and unstable file-based SIFs shares for central repository to database repository, and move to RAS workers groups where RAS is pulling from central, and there is no need to use the VIPs for RASs because you cannot do that in the groups. The move of central repository to database moves central performance because there is no need for central to communicate with both shared file system and database like it was in 09. As I mentioned again, after the upgrade to 10, we no longer need that VIPs for RASes because RAS, because of the support for a group mechanism. So that simplified our monitoring for our central VIPs, so we no longer need and have dependency on a Terracotta. Some of the tweaking we had to do after the environment, some tuning after the upgrade. So as far as memory for central and RAS and number of database connections, and also we looked at a number of execution threads as well. So just some, some list of tips or best practices I think would be helpful, and those are things that we discovered along the way. So as we mentioned again, define your content structure and build out it in 9 prior to migrating. That really significantly reduce time and complexity of the whole upgrade process. Keep running the conversion utility and start, sooner than later. It really gives you the good report or sense where you're at with your code needs to be fixed. And as far as the source control, what we found is make sure you invest into a web-based source control as opposed to a file-based, because sooner or later you'll run into some performance issues, especially if you have remote offices and your developers are across the globe. Also, pay or be ready to pay more attention to database. As I mentioned, everything is now moved off the file-based database, so there's a significant load on a database, and a significant amount of the data is going to the database now. So make sure you properly test and configure database as well as you prepare to clean up database, because depending on your type of flows, you might see this increase in utilization. Also, if you're using some type of reporting, as we did in 9, because of our active implementation, where we had 2 independent data centers, so basically we had 2 sets of data that needed to be merged. So we had some flows and scripts running to do that. So what we found again in 10, the structure of the database changed. So definitely some different tables and different dependencies there. So definitely want to look into that. I'm pretty sure will require changes for that as well. As I mentioned previously, on a post-upgrade architecture tuning, make sure you spend enough time on it. There is a pretty good guide as well as how to tune your environment. So from a memory perspective for central RAS, most likely only those. Database connections, we had to increase those as well, and number of execution threads, we had to do that on central and RAS side as well.
And I can't reiterate enough the building out the content structure ahead of time. So, again, that was something we were looking at even prior to the migration, and it really worked out nice, the new structure, and then being able to do the upgrade. But again, what we had did, and especially since the promotion process does change with 10, is we built that structure out in 9, and we actually, quote unquote, lived into that structure in terms of being able to handle change based on content pack. So what it did is it pretty much set us up for success when we actually did the conversion to 10. We are basically already living the same procedures, that we had implemented in preparation, in the 9 environment. And then just a couple other things that, I had mentioned before is just avoid practice, any practice of copying operations. We now, stop that practice, and basically, we obviously, leverage the operations, within that base content directly. We also saw a behavior change for prompt user between 9 and 10. So previous, behavior, when an input defaulted to, otherwise prompt user was failed to execute, whereas the new behavior actually caused our, flows to pause and wait for input. So we needed to be careful and look for that ahead of time. just going hand in hand with the, updated procedures is we did get, a readiness documentation in place for all of our developers that basically illustrated, the new links, the instructions for studio upgrade, as well as the setup and layout changes. And then being able to walk through, the functionality of importing workflows, updating workflows, promoting, and then running workflows. And then I can't say enough about the last two items. We always enforce the locking policy, which you want to make sure, that is across your development, your developers, as well as always performing update all. So again, we have the enforced locking, so that, it eliminates the opportunity for a developer to overlay something that he hadn't checked out. The thing with that is, being that you have to check out and actually you're developing locally, even you can go ahead and grab that code and check it out. If you hadn't done an update all, you won't have the most recent copy. And, it'll let you do your updates, but when you go and try to do an update, it'll recognize the fact that you've got an older version and, obviously, not let you check that in. But you obviously don't want to waste that, time that you spent trying to update code that wasn't the most current. So again, every time a developer gets into Studio, they do an update all. And just to illustrate, we do just a little bit with regards to the services we actually provide across the enterprise. This just gives you a flavor. We do send out service usage metrics. So Darius had mentioned we did get hit with the change, with regards to the way we actually pull our metrics, because one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we offloaded, that data to a historical reporting database. So A, we take the load off of central, but B, we're able to consolidate the active environments to a single database. On a monthly basis, we do go through that, historical data, and we actually produce a metrics package for each one of our service owners, service owners and subservice owners, that basically illustrates, their particular services, what the, consumption of their services were, what their services consumption were on the subservice, and then it shows subservice owners, who's consuming their services. So it really illustrates, the dependencies across our technology stacks, and it also represents, the number of, services ordered, across our platform on a monthly basis, as well as subservices. And then just another example, the invocation. So again, we mentioned services are those that are exposed and ordered by consumers through an invocation channel. Obviously, we like to measure where those services are actually being invoked from.
So just to talk a little bit about our future vision and next steps, what we're trying to do here with OO. We are utilizing, but we want to utilize more of the REST APIs that come with OO10. It will allow us to standardize our offerings even further, while the more robust security options available in OO10, and will allow us to expose more functionality to our clients. We're in the process of launching our new orchestration portal that takes full advantage of the REST APIs, provides easier and enhanced way to launch flows and check status and manage access and availability of flows, as well as provide some customized reporting. We also launched our homegrown orchestration API gateway, which also provides another way for the developers or anybody in the enterprise to use orchestrated flows and launch them through the API gateway. We also recently migrated to from file-based to the web-based SVN sort of control. So as I mentioned before, we had some performance issues with the file-based one. Moving to a based one, address those. Also working on in the process of upgrading to the 10.2 version. worked with HPE R&D for a while on that. So tend to provide even nice new features for content management and load triggering, more simplified central UI, and the probably biggest thing is the database management enhancements. So nice is data visualization and also simplified, the management or cleanup, private flows and APIs, and wanting to do that to clean up data. As our environment grows and we're adding more flow, we're looking and automating as much as possible. So we're looking into automating the health checks and in the process of launching our automated content built-on promotion processes, and also working right now on automated service and integration.
So at this time, I don't know, Andre, if the lines are still muted, but if we want to open it up for any Q&A.
Hi, the lines are not muted, so we can already start having a Q&A session. There are 3 questions which are currently unanswered. So there is one in the question area. I can read it for you. So the question coming from Tim is if the O10 Central is Linux or Windows, and if it's Linux, if there are some of the RASes of yours in Windows as well.
No, so our environment is we looked at both options. We ended up going with a Windows. So right now we're on a Windows 2008, but we in the process of to Windows 2012 the end of this year. So our ads are on a Windows box.
Great, and there are 2 more questions. You can see them in the chat. One coming from
Right.
George.
So yeah. So there was a question about the version. So we started with 903, then we moved to 907, and then we moved 1010. We obviously explored or played with the other versions in between, but as far as production, that's how we went. We definitely played with 10, 10.00, 10.02. But again, as far as production, we were 903, 907, and 1010, and we probably will be in 1022 by the end of the month. As far as the database, so there was a question if our Oracle racks, if our Oracle racks dedicated to OO, and also if Oracle racks replicated between 2 data centers. So the answer to the first one is no. Unfortunately, here, I wish we could have it dedicated, but when I have it here, so those are shared databases. But again, those are Oracle racks, so we have 3-node or 4-node clusters. So we have in one data center and now data center. There's no replication between data centers, as I mentioned. They're completely independent. So components in each data center, servers, databases, or the runtime file repositories are completely independent. They're not aware about each other. So there's some challenges with that as far as reporting and promotion. So when we promote stuff, we have to promote both data centers. And if there is issues or something, we have to troubleshooting is a little bit more complicated as well as. So we are looking into some potential changes, in the future, end of the year, beginning of next year, to see actually exploring some of the options to see if we can configure or use a different type of database architecture. So we're looking at some replication and some other options.
I think somebody was asking number of centrals and RASes per server in each location.
Yeah, so production wise is we have again running into data centers. So we have 3-node cluster in one data center and 3-node cluster in another data center, and those are centrals and RASes. We looked at the options to see if it makes sense to have them as separate boxes. But in our case, it didn't really make sense. We don't have anything special running for those RASs executing anything special. So we only have some RASs in our DMZ environments to touch the restricted zones, but other than that, our RASs and centrals are sharing boxes. So those are 3 node clusters in production, and same we have replica in our pre-prod or UAT environment. So again, we node clusters in one data center and then 3 node clusters in another data center.
I think somebody's asking the number of flows. So we have over 1 to 200,000 flows that actually execute each month. And typically the number of steps I would gauge anywhere from 20 to 100 steps per flow.
Yeah, well, the number of steps per flow vary wildly. So, I mean, we probably have some flows that terminate in maybe 10 or 15 steps. We have other flows that probably run on for hundreds of steps. So that's really all over the board, honestly.
There are 3 more questions. Which web-based SVN did we choose? We ended up going to Visual SVN for now, but I heard some rumors that 10.5 is going to provide support to GitHub, so we're going to probably, from what I've seen, most likely that's our direction going to be there moving forward, but right now we are using Visual SVN. What tools did you use to develop your metrics reporting? So we utilized some of the flows that I think HP published, right?
So actually our metrics reporting today with 0010 is done via using the REST APIs. So basically the reporting is done with a very large PowerShell script running REST calls against our centrals. And then that they're subsequently stored in a database. So it's actually an OO flow running a PowerShell script, which then stores things into a reporting database.
Right. So we offload basically because we don't like to run reporting out of a live database. So we offload the data, and we don't need all the data that's basically on essential databases, right? So we just basically pick and choose what we would like to have it. And as basically, as Steve mentioned, we have a script running that offloads the data and merges into our reporting database. And then basically out of that reporting database, we can do, dashboarding over our other reporting.
And what we do is we actually schedule that flow to run, basically every single day to pull the data from the previous day. That way it's building over time, and our historical database is only 1 day old, and that allows the folks, on the team that actually, then can, use that data to put together the various different packages.
I wish there was an easy way to manage environments that are, let's say, you have multiple data center implementations and multiple centers or multiple databases to have like a single pane to manage and see that. But I think maybe we'll change.
And then that last question, that's a really good one in terms of, challenges with multiple authors updating the same project. So basically that goes back to what I was talking about, the level of granularity. So for every single content pack, which is really, the same as a project, basically we leverage, believe it or not, a WSS list that basically is part of our life cycle before any code is actually touched in any of those projects. We actually basically mark it out, check it out as build, and we assign the developer that's responsible for updating that content pack for that particular release. So, we have a coordinator that basically handles, because we get hundreds of enhancements requests every single month, and we have to be really, really careful to coordinate, not stepping on, obviously multiple developers updating a content pack. And then
in that vein, we have had, we tried early on, and we haven't tried again in a while now, so maybe it's different. I kind of doubt it though. The merge functionality from SVN, so if you have numerous developers touching the same code and you try and merge their changes with SVN, we had no success with that. It absolutely did not work. So that's why we abandoned that whole way of doing things, and we went to one developer touches one thing at one time. Again, we haven't tried that in a long time though, so maybe it's something we should look at again sometime. But for now, at least, things have been working, so we've been sticking with this one developer for one project.
And the other thing we have to be really careful to manage is, if there's any dependencies on multiple content packs having to be released at the same time based on changes to services as well as integration. So we have a pretty good process in place that helps manage that and keeps things in sync.
Any other questions? Guess not.
So I guess not. I want to thank you guys, Katie, Darius, and Stephen, for the call today. I thank you all who joined, and we are waiting for you in October for the next call. Thank you.
All right.